And we are live. Guys, first thing I want, well, first of all, welcome to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your podcaster for this evening, master of ceremonies. First thing I want to announce is I'm very, very proud that I had my first article since 2011 published in a print magazine called the Lousiiana Sportsman. I'm very proud of that. The Lousiiana Sportsman, those are the big boys in outdoor communication in Louisiana, particularly southern Louisiana. And that tells me I've still got it. And speaking of the Louisiiana Sportsman, I have Keith Lusher, who's all over that magazine for photography to text, to all kinds of stuff. And he provided all the photos for my article. And we had some fantastic. So check that out, guys. March edition, Louisiiana Sportsman. How are you doing tonight, Keith?
I'm doing just fine, Jay. It's a pleasure to talk with you again. And congratulations on that article. And also congratulations on doing such a great job with the podcast. I binge watched a bunch of episodes. I went back. I had a little time. And you do a really good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, thank you. That's all I can say about that. It's humbling, truly, man. Truly humbling. I love the podcast. I love to talk fishing. Guys, I went fishing with Keith for that article, and we had a great time talking the whole way there, the whole way back. It was like 2 hours there, 2 hours back. There was no shortage of stuff to talk about. I could not believe it, man. Like the third cast, I felt the bite, reared back, and I'm like, this is a big trout. This is exactly what I needed. Like we get there, I don't think they're going to believe this, Keith. From the shore, Grand Isle, and we get there, and this guy who we both knew had a limit, which is 15 trout. The smallest one was 18 inches, and I'm talking speckled trout, not inland, not freshwater trout, but
yeah. I tell you, Jay, that has become normal for me. It seems like when I first started my career, it was the complete opposite. It was a challenge, just putting a fish in the boat when I need, or as a photograph or a video. But man, everything has just changed for me as far as, I mean, we talked on our last podcast with Patrick, and Patrick told you how he wants to take me and physically put me in the boat for every one of his tournaments because it seemed like we do good. But I'm telling you, it could end tomorrow. My streak could end, but thank God everything works out for us. And the pressure of coming up against the line of an article, and it's like, put pressure on these fishermen, and these fishermen can catch, but it can't. We just, that day you can't catch anything. Well, the day I went with you was totally opposite. I mean, we pulled in and we saw fish coming onto the shore and onto the bridge nonstop.
That was so funny. I walk up to these guys. They didn't recognize me. They knew who I was, but they didn't recognize me. And you guys catch anything? Nope. I'm going to cry shenanigans because I saw you as I was driving by. It doesn't take much for me to recognize somebody setting a hook.
Yeah. Well, they're secretive over there.
Yeah, that's a special spot we were at.
Sometimes all it takes is the word magazine, and those grown men turn into little boys. So,
and I want to tell my viewers, fish are camera shy. I guess you are a good luck charm because I've been out a lot of times with, magazines and even television shows taping me in. There were times when I couldn't buy a fish. They told the television producer, tell me, show up with a live well full of live fish because we're not coming out here again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I get that, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. It costs a lot of money to bring a whole production crew out. But let's talk speckled trout. Where are you from, Keith?
I am from Terrytown. It's on the west bank of New Orleans. And so I grew up in the heart of speckled trout fishing. Southeast Louisiana, Lafitte, Grand Isle, Magnolia Canals, Belle Chase, Venice, Shell Beach. We were right in the center of all that. So, grew up with speckled trout fishing. So
That is the center of it, man. That is the center of it. When I first came down here, I caught a couple speckled trout, but they were just little 10-inch schoolies. And then I caught my first redfish, and I got really sidetracked by redfish. But then I caught my first big speckled trout. And I'm like, this is special.
Yeah. Nothing like that. And speckled trout is king here. I don't know if you've learned that yet, but
I have.
It has a command over every other fish there is. Something about speckled trout fishing. You pattern them easy, but when they're not there, you could totally strike out. But then you
Yes.
could absolutely load the boat in a matter of we catch the limit in half hour, 45 minutes. If you could find a school of speckled trout, bust around, seagulls dive, and it happens that quick. It's probably the most exciting fishing I've ever experienced.
I agree with you. It's very exciting. In fact, talking to a lot of the charter boat captains I've talked to as a podcaster, now as a writer. So I heard this more than once. A lot of outfitters won't fish for speckled trout because they're here today and gone tomorrow. They're here today and gone 10 minutes from now.
Yeah, you definitely can. It's definitely a local fish. Word travels around.
Hey Keith, could you go a little bit closer to your microphone, please?
Sure. How's that?
It's much better. We were losing the audio there.
Yeah, but well, like I was saying, it's definitely a local fish. It helps to be fishing more and more, so you see where these fish are moving, where they're going to be. Like you said, it's a tough fish too. You can't just go out and throw a line out and expect to catch it. It's kind of comparable to sockeye fishing, crappie fishing, where you have to do your homework and you have to have some kind of history with catching speckled trout.
Well, I would like to show the people something. This is my favorite. Of course, guys, if you want to catch speckled trout, get you a popping cork. And most of the guides are going to put live shrimp, and of course, hundreds of thousands of specks are caught. We're using live shrimp every year, but I like using this. This is a Mojo shrimp, 2-inch, and that color is called Pineapple Express. Let's see if you can see that color. And what I like about this lure is it's Kevlar infused. So it's not going to break the first time a speck hits that because, they like to be called the vampire. Yeah. Sometimes this thing gets me. People like to call it the vampire fish because it has 2 fangs on the front. And I really think that's accurate. I love the way they look with their yellow mouth and the vampire fangs, the two teeth that come out right in the front of their mouth. As Keith knows, I love taking pictures down the throat of a big speck.
Yeah, that's a one-of-a-kind fish, with that bright yellow mouth and fangs. It's definitely recognizable.
And maybe you can help me with this, but most of the really big specks I've caught on live. You saw me catch one on live minnow. Yeah. Do you ever use live minnows for specs?
No.
Okay.
That's not to say we shouldn't be using live minnow. Fishing is totally different here on the North Shore where I am.
Sure.
Plastic is king. That's what we use. When growing up, when we were fishing Happy Jack, Magnolia Canals, Lafitte, live shrimp was popular. But what we would do is, I found the absolute best bait that we used to do is we used to take a crab, crack it in half, throw it in a minnow trap. Okay? We would launch our boat. We would drive to where we knew that there were potholes. This was me and my dad. We would drive to where we knew there was potholes, and we would walk in the marsh and throw that minnow trap in the pothole. And there's something in there called storm minnows. There's these little perch-shaped minnows, no more than maybe a half-inch. They don't even look like they're big enough to catch trout. But I tell you what, we would rig those 2 feet, about 2.5 feet under a popping cork with a split shot right in the middle. And all day we could catch speckled trout on those storm minnows. And one thing with those storm minnows is you can't catch them in open water. I guess it's because they're so small. So these fish are stealthy. They're back in that marsh. They're back in that grass. And they're only in those potholes where there are no other aggressive, predator fish.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's where you have to find them. They are tough to find, but if you put in the work, you walk back in that marsh, you find a little hole. And I'll tell you what, Google Earth is easy now. If you could look on Google Earth, you can find these little potholes in the marsh where you would have to walk back there and find them on your own, but you can spot them on Google Earth. And all it takes is the area's got to have a little, brackish to salt water. And I promise you, there's going to be some storm minnows in that pothole.
Okay, we have a comment from the audience. It's CB Bassing.
Oh, okay.
The only true, you know him?
Yes, Chris Basie.
Chris Basie. Okay.
Yeah.
He said the only lure you need is a chug bug. Have you caught the
Well, a little history with Chris. That's his go-to lure for everything. He absolutely fishing it, even if he knows he's not going to catch anything. So,
well, this is the time of the year to use chug bugs. I mean, when the bass are on their beds, that's one of the few things I can catch them on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know where their beds are at. Just go back there and throw you a little popper or a chug bug. Same, different companies, same lure.
Yeah, it's a great lure, but Chris has got it. Chris is the chug bug bit him pretty bad. He loves that lure. He loves walking it. So,
well, thank you for commenting, Chris. I appreciate that. I love it when people comment on the podcast.
Yeah. Chris,
yes.
An excellent bass fisherman. He runs the Bass Assassins tournament over here on the North Shore every other week. Every 2 weeks, he does a bass tournament. So, Chris has been with my website for a long, long time, and great friend.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for commenting, Chris. Speaking of topwater lures, I knew a guy. Gosh, I cannot remember his name. He died of COVID back in 2012 or 2020. Todd was asking where we fish. Todd, we're fishing down on the Lousiiana marsh. Keith is from around Lake Pontchartrain, but we went fishing down in Grand Isle together. Keith fishes all over. So do I.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is not usual. I was not expecting to catch speckled trout from the roadside, being that area is usually known for its redfish migration through there around that time when we went, winter time. So I was fully expecting redfish. So that was a great surprise to see those guys pulling in trout, and you got to. But was that you caught a bigger trout than that, correct?
Yes, it was at least 20 inches long.
Yeah. Man.
Remember, we didn't measure it, and guys, don't. Well, I just said that, but it was a big trout. We did not measure it. We were too. I like to put the big boys back in the water.
Yeah.
But it was a big one. Keith's been fishing trout his whole life. I've been fishing my entire life. But let me tell you, they catch big trout there starting in November all the way up to when the water starts warming up.
Yeah. And Greg Billiot, the gentleman that was
yes,
really tearing them up on the shore. I got to talk with him. Yeah. Got to talk with him a while, and he's texting me. He's like, still catching them, still catching them, still catching them. So that's really incredible that we can catch speckled trout from the shoreline like that with such ease,
And that's why I wanted to write an article about that.
Hmm.
Those two bridges have safe places that you can be separated from the traffic. They have safe parking. It's a great opportunity for your average guy who doesn't have an expensive boat to go there and really experience some of the saltwater fishing that southern Louisiana has.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you ever flew over southeast Louisiana in a plane, it's easy to understand how we can catch fish from land, because it seems like every road you see that has access to some kind of water. You know.
Yes, yes, southern Louisiana has endless opportunities for fishing. If you go in the marsh, guys, make sure you have a GPS because you can get lost in that marsh so easily. Every shoreline looks like every other shoreline, looks like every other shoreline.
Yeah, and that marsh is changing too with the saltwater and the river diversions. Sometimes you pull in somewhere and it's like, man, you don't even recognize where you are. So that marsh is definitely changing. So be careful.
LA stands for Lower Alabama.
Hmm.
Just got a comment. Says LA stands for Lower Alabama or Louisiana. I have fished in Louisiana, but I have fished in Lower Alabama, but the fishing there is completely different because you have clear water.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know. I can fish deep clear water, but shallow clear water I'm lost.
Yeah. If
I'm lost.
you go on Google Earth and you hone in on southeast Louisiana and you see the river right where it's mixing with all the cleaner water. Everywhere that river mixes with the clean water is lights out for fishing. There's just something about the brackish water that these fish love.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I used to work offshore and I would sit there and just be glued to my window riding those helicopters out and think. And I didn't do much fishing back then. I was just too busy. Like, I hope I get to fish there someday. And Todd asked, is this brackish water? Yes, this is brackish water. The salinity varies greatly, and that's one of the things that a lot of guys will have the salinity meter right on their boat so that they can tell, because the trout need more salinity than redfish need. And you can find largemouth bass and redfish together, but I've never found trout and redfish together. Have you?
Trout and redfish?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, not trout and redfish. Trout and largemouth bass. I'm sorry.
Trout. Yeah, we catch trout mixed with bass now more than what we did over a decade ago.
Okay.
That might have been due to the lake being flushed with all those spillway openings with the fresh water.
Sure.
Eventually got worked its way down, the Intercoastal Canal, Mr. Go, all that area. That's very good bass fishing. We're seeing some big bass being taken from there. I keep kidding with Chris. I wish he'd schedule a bass tournament down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've caught some pretty good bass. In fact, my profile picture that was caught south of Homa in one of the canals off of Lake Decad.
That was a trout?
No, it was a largemouth bass.
Oh, bass, yeah. Yeah, we got some good bass fishing here.
And guys, the bass don't get as long because their growth is stunted because of the brackish water. But they sit in there and they gobble up shrimp, small crabs, about 6 different kinds of minnows.
Mm-hmm.
Seven now that Keith told me about storm minnows.
Oh man, yeah.
And they just gobble these things up and they get fat. So a 16-inch bass is going to weigh 3.5 pounds here easily. You don't get the skinny bass that sometimes you get up north.
No. And I find these bass I think they eat a little more aggressive than a regular river bass, only because they are, well, first of all, there's more food out here. I mean,
yes.
Shad, bayfish, all in the brackish water. But I think I heard a theory that they're forced to compete with all the other predator fish in that salt water, which will make them up their game, I guess you could.
And all those fish they're competing with are highly aggressive, and they all have teeth.
Yeah.
They all have teeth. And fishing saltwater is not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's all the fish have teeth. They're all aggressive, and they're very, very strong. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going again this weekend. Then I'm going again the weekend after that. I just can't get enough of it. I'm going to have to get a new truck here pretty soon. About when it's going out.
Where headed?
I'm heading to Point of Shane this weekend.
All right.
Then it's going to be back to Lake Calcasieu to fish with a guy. Lake Calcasieu has some big trout.
Yes. They are known for their big trout. I've never fished Calcasieu, but they got quite a few trophies coming out of there.
Well, next time I go, I'll give you a call. See if the guys.
I'll bring my camera.
Yeah, you bring the camera. Guys, I don't know how Keith does this, but last time I fished with him, he didn't bring any fishing rods. I said, well, I have lots of extras. He didn't grab one. I said,
no.
Those 3 rods right there are extra. He brought his camera, and he had a fantastic time. Man, Keith, my hat's off to you.
Hey, I love
do that.
Love taking photos. I love capturing the moment, and if I have a rod in my hand, I just know 50% of my attention's gone, maybe even more if I'm fishing.
More.
I grew up fishing all my life. I've caught fish. I know what it's like to catch fish. I enjoy catching fish, but I enjoy more capturing the moment, putting it to an article, and having that, etched in time forever. So
I found that out the hard way the first time I went out with my brand new camera. All of a sudden, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. The fish aren't biting. We have a couple fish in the live well. They're sluggish. They're almost dead. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I remembered your words. You gotta catch them. You gotta capture them right after you catch them.
Oh, there's nothing like taking a picture of somebody catching a fish. Hooking the fish, reeling it in, and slapping it in the boat. I mean, it's just that fish is just so energetic and it's flapping all around. You got drops flying everywhere. The angler's face, it can't be replicated.
It can't. And I'm going to have to make a decision. I don't know if I'll make the right one because I am so addicted to this, and
I do.
But it's not a bad addiction.
I do video for the fishing report, so I'll kill 2 birds with one stone. We'll get into fish, and I'll have my GoPro, and we will do a video. But if we get into them thick, it'd be I'll put that video down and snap some pictures. So
yeah, Keith has all kinds of cool stuff. He has this GoPro in a globe, so he can put it half in and half out of the water and get like that double view under the water and over the water. That's cover photo quality stuff right there.
Yeah, that captures, if you get the right shot, the angler with the bent rod up above screaming and hollering, and with the fish fighting the lure and the line underneath the water thrashing about. Those pictures are the hardest to get. It takes the most time to get, but when you get them, sometimes I just sit and stare at them. I love that view. It's called an over and under shot.
Yeah, those over under shots. That's what I call the $1 million photo.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you get a good one. You're blessed with a good picture. It doesn't always happen. But speaking of fishing, Keith is also a huge fan of crappies, which you guys down here call them sac-a-lait. A lot of other guys call them. They're also called specks.
Really?
In some places, yeah. But they're called all kinds of different things. White perch.
White.
Well, there actually is white. There is a fish called a white perch. But taking another fish that's fickle and hard to catch.
Oh, let me tell you, I grew up fishing in South Louisiana, bass, perch, everything. West Wego, we used to fish for fresh water. When I moved up here, all these rivers. I never caught a sac-a-lait in, I want to say, 20-something years of fishing. those fish, if you're not targeting a sockeye, it's hard to catch. I mean, it wasn't until I created NorthShoreFishingReport.com and I started meeting these sockeye anglers that really knew what they were doing that I was introduced. You know, my first sockeye, I think Ray Miller brought me out to Chafunka River, and we were fishing like 30 feet off the bank. Talk about no man's land. Like, how do
Yeah.
we fish out here in the middle of the river? And he told me, just look down and let that jig hang. And man, I felt a thump, and it was like, wow, that was incredible. Reeled in, 11, 12-inch sockeye, and that was it. I mean, just you would never think that these fish are out that deep in the water.
Well, let me ask you something about sockeye behavior. Now, up north, when the water temperature hits about 65 degrees, the crappies come into the shallow water, particularly around structure like standing timber, riprap. They come in mass for about 6 days. But if you know the body of water, you can follow them around, because not all fish spawn at the same time, because the water temperature doesn't hit suitable temperatures at the same time. Does that happen around here?
The spawn is way more spread out over here, and it's because sometimes in late February you can see 80s, and that signals to these fish, let's go. We have a lot of dead-end canals that come off these rivers, and those dead-end canals, the water is still back there, and these sockeye don't lay their eggs in heavily moving water.
Okay.
Why they come into the shallows. It's less turbulent. So they'll go into the back of these dead-end canals for two reasons. They'll have wood, they'll have structure that they can lay their eggs on. The water's not moving, and that water is warmer because it's not moving, and it's shallower back there. So if that sun comes out for 3 days straight, it's beating on that dead end water, that still water, and it'll warm it up 10 degrees higher than the main river. So
Okay.
and why those fish will come back there, but it's more spread out for us. I kind of wish it was more condensed so we could really target the spawn within 3 or 4 weeks. But I mean, there's probably spawning fish right now.
I bet there are. But that was always my favorite time of the year to target. A lot of people tell me, crappies are easy. I'm like, okay, let's go out in August. And I'll bet my paycheck.
It's tough. I mean, you can catch them year round,
of course.
You have to have your spots. I mean, the guys I go with are phenomenal. They're like robots. I mean, they hit this spot, next spot. They can hit 10 spots, and then the final spot they hit, it'll be pay dirt.
Well, they follow those fish around all year. When I was a guide, I thought I had 4 lakes I guided, and I followed those crappies around all year long. And if I lost them, I'd be on the phone with the other guides. Hey man, can you help me out? And of course, when they needed help, I come on over. You see my boat? I can see you looking at me. And then they'd come over because they're like, I just lost them. They're right here.
Yep.
Share my, these were my friends. Just share my spot, man.
Well, you never know. When you can't find them, if they can put you on them, they might pay the favor back. You could pay them the favor back when they can't find it. You could put them on it.
It's the only way guiding works, because you can't be everywhere at once. And those of us who had full-time jobs, like most guides in Illinois, unless they're retired,
right.
You just there's just not enough 24 hours in a day to follow the fish in 4 lakes.
Yeah. Jay, what was the average size crappie y'all would catch up there?
8 to 10.
Okay. All right.
They were smaller. If I caught a 12-incher, it made my article.
Okay.
I put the picture in my article. Look at this. Of course it wasn't. It'd probably be like a 14 down here. It's a very rare fish.
Yeah.
And of course the sizes were cyclical. It seemed like a couple years we get a lot of 10s, and then all of a sudden next year they'd come around, they'd all be 8. And I called the 8-inchers transparencies, because you remember back when we were in school and the teacher would have the have the transparencies that she'd write on for the projectors.
Yeah.
Because the 8-inchers, it seemed like you could see right through them. They're so skinny.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the size that you would keep? You would have a minimum limit?
Most places did not have a minimum limit up there, but they had a possession limit of 10.
Okay.
And that's 10 8-inchers doesn't make for a healthy meal for two people.
Yeah. Well, forces you to cull a little bit bigger fish then.
Yeah, I would throw the small ones back and keep the 10 to 12 inchers, and throw anything over 12 back. Yeah, throw them back. I tend to believe in genetics, that the bigger fish have better genetics, and I want them to pass on their genes.
Yeah, I hear you.
Kind of like bull reds, bull reds, those are the spawners, and the smaller crappies can spawn, because I found them with eggs all the way down to 8 inches long.
Yeah. Yep.
And also crappies they're such prolific breeders.
Oh yeah, they don't mess around. We have a healthy population here. It's one of the few fish that the department hasn't been going after, but knock on wood, I don't know about that. It seems like they're trying to limit the catch, the daily bag on every fish. So we'll see. We have a 50 fish limit in Louisiana, and we don't seem to be struggling at all to catch sockeye. So that seems like it's safe for now.
Well, the bodies of water I live closest to, which is the Lake Bijou and the northern spillway, I see pictures there all the time. Guys with just 5-gallon buckets full, our coolers full
Mm-hmm.
of 12-inch crappies. It's wow. There's a lot of those in that body of water.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're all the way up and down the Atchafalaya spillway.
Yeah, they're all over here. I mean, you just got to find them and do the homework. It's definitely not a fish to go out and hope to catch. You have to not pick any bass lures. That was my biggest problem. If I went out to try to catch, I'd get all jazzed up, and half hour, 45 minutes goes by, I see a bass, chase a minnow by a log next to the shoreline. I'm switching over to a spinnerbait or throw at them, and it's so
that happens. I do get That's a thing, if you want to learn how to fish for another fish, you want to learn how to fish another lure, that's all you can take, because I have a short attention span when it comes to fishing. If I see, like if I'm fishing for specks and I see a red tailing, I'm running back to the truck.
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
I'm running back to the truck because reds might not be king, but they certainly are strong.
Yep. Oh, they're definitely fun.
And red fish on the grill is a yum.
A half shell?
What's that?
On the half shell?
Yep, on the half shell, as they say down here. Yes, on the half shell. Yes, I told you I went fishing with Tommy Adams out of Lake Calcasieu, and he asked me how I wanted the reds filleted. I said, on the half shell, please, please. I can always cut that skin off if I want to fry them.
Sure, he was pleased with that, because that's an easy fillet there to leave them on the half shell. You can fish fast like that.
Yes. So what is and there are endless soft plastic lures for sockeye. Mm-hmm. What do you like in a soft plastic lure for?
I like, it's just so hard to beat the standard black and chartreuse color for sockeye. It's just so safe. So that's my go-to color. Bobby Garland's big down here. Mr. Green's crappie baits. He's a local that I go fishing with, and he makes his own baits. He just makes them specifically for what he needs, and I trust his judgment that they're the best baits. He fishes Bayou Lacombe, so Mr. Green's crappie baits, Bobby Garland. For the most part, when I go, if we're fishing with two people, it's best to use two different types of colors to everything different, just so you could see which guy is picking up the most, and then the other one will switch over to what that guy's using. So it's a variety of different types of lures. Typically, if you see muddy water, if you're fishing sac-a-lait for muddy water, you're using a more of a bold color, like a straight black, or maybe a dark smoke, um, or even maybe a bright white, solid white color. Anything solid that these fish can see in that muddy water. You want to stay away from, that shad color, the clear with the little sparkles in it, that style lure. But now, if it's clear water, you definitely want to go more natural, and you also want to go with a thinner line, because those fish can see that.
Man, when I was in Illinois, they had a mini mites. Mini mites were very, very, very small lure. You didn't want to use them on more than 4-pound tests. They didn't do much, but pink was my favorite color. And that was, we fished a lot of them deep, the deeper. As the summer went on, I went to smaller lures and deeper, and on the tops of structure that's like 25 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the GPS wasn't as good as it is now. I had to do a lot of triangulation, even with my GPS, to find these places. You're trying to find something, and it's out there in the middle of nowhere. So, most of the other guys aren't going to sit on there and pull every single sac-a-lait off that piece of structure. That happened a lot of times, and I saw it happen. A fishing club would find out one of the places that the guides were going, and next thing you know, they're bragging on Facebook, we pulled 1,200 crappies off this one piece of structure.
I think that crappie fishing is probably the most secretive.
Yes, because you can decimate a crappie population in a small area. That's one thing that forward-facing sonar is teaching us, is crappies stay there. Bass are always moving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the crappie fishermen are doing so well with the forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
I talked to guides like out in Lake Fork, and this guide told me I don't go for crappies anything less than 2 pounds now.
Yeah, you can get picky. Yep. I went with a gentleman over here on the Trinfuncta, Tim Bai, and he was the first guy that introduced me to live scope. And when I went with him, it was just incredible. It's like a video game.
Yes. Yeah, some of my very good friends from Illinois, when I went up there last time, they wanted to show me what the new crappie fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been using Vexillars for years for ice fishing. It's a lot of the same thing, except the Vexillar, just like the old flashers. Remember the old Lowrance flashers that came in the green box?
Yeah,
it's like the next generation of that flasher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, what it's changed. It's changed crappie fishing. It's changed bass fishing.
Yes, it has. It definitely has.
You can complain about it, but I think it's here to stay. So
yeah, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Too many people are using it. It's here to stay, and it's not worth arguing about, I think.
Just enjoy catching more fish, I guess.
Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Yeah, it's just another tool. They also thought with when graph started that this is the end of fishing as we know it. They also thought when GPS came available on our sonar units, this is the end of fishing as we know it. There aren't going to be any fish left. Well, we found out that's not true.
Sky is falling, huh?
Yes, exactly.
There's always controversy with fishermen and anglers catching fish and debating on the limits and all that. So as a writer, I enjoy in that, and I enjoy hashing that out in some of my news articles for Outdoor Hub. So
yeah, in a news article I would do that, but in the articles I write, I just like to write about fun stuff. That's just my style. Write about how I catch fish from the bridge.
So your article, Jay, would you say that's pretty much your style, and that's how you like to write?
Lousiiana Sportsman wanted me to write on the third person. I like to write in the first person. That's my style. But of course, as a professional writer, I write for the magazine that I'm writing for.
Right. Absolutely.
If they ask me to write in the third person, yes, I can do that. I'm also a scientific writer, so I know how to do that. I've done it thousands of times. But no, I prefer to convey passion through for the first person.
Yeah. I,
This is so much fun, guys. You would not believe how much fun this is. And you when you're when you're popping cork, and all of a sudden you feel that it stop. I like to try to convey that through my words. That's what the challenge is for outdoor writing for me.
yeah. No, you did a great job, and I was hooked from the start to the end. Especially you giving away a few spots, man. You can't make a
Yeah.
habit.
Well, it's the bridges are for everybody, and Louisiana did that on purpose to give people the opportunity to catch fish. And man, I want to publicize that. Yes, it's going to be harder for me to fish, but those spots don't belong to me.
Right, right. A
And
lot.
and your average guy's going to go there with 2 ounces of lead and put a big gob of rotting shrimp on them and wonder why he didn't catch any fish. I've had guys sit there. I've come here all the time, never catch any fish, and I look at them and say, I very rarely get skunked.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not going to tell you I don't get skunked because that would be lying. But
yeah,
of course I get skunked. But I very Todd said that's why there's limits. Yeah, I agree, Todd.
mm-hmm.
Hey man, do you have any? First of all, I really enjoy talking to you again. I always enjoy talking to you, Keith. This guy's an encyclopedia of fishing knowledge from the South Louisiana, which is something I need since he has, my first 45 years, I never fished down here.
No, glad to have you. I mean, if I could teach, anything, like I said, growing up here, it's inbred into us. And sometimes you'll hear words that you don't hear anywhere else in the country that we'll just say, and you'll be like, what did he just say?
I didn't know what sakale was the first time I heard it.
Sakale,
Packs of milk.
a tranas, green trout. They have green trout down here. What else do we have?
Is that a bass?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Because we call them green carp up. No, the walleye fishermen call them green carp.
Green carp. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, they were just jealous because they didn't get the big contracts that the professional bass fishermen got.
Yeah.
But do you have any shout outs you'd like to do, Keith?
Oh man, you know me. I'm so thankful for the guys who work with me with my articles. Just all I ask is to find me, write for Outdoor Hub or write for Crappie Now. Louisiana Sportsman recently started writing for Visit the North Shore. So that's with the St. Tammany Parish Tourist Commission and the Slidell Independent newspaper. And I got something coming for Sport Fishing Mag. We're going to be focusing on the shrimp migration down here in South Louisiana. So I'm excited about that. It'll be my first time writing for Sport Fishing Mag, big time.
That's interesting, Al. Let me know when that comes out. I want to read that. You're going to be following around the shrimp migrations?
Yeah, we the shrimp really dictate the speckled trout bite, especially here on the North Shore. Man, if you could time those shrimp coming out of the marsh, it's going to be a fall article. If you've ever fished down here, those cold fronts start coming, everything busts loose. The weather's cooling, the water temperatures are cooling, the specks are moving in, out of the marsh. Not only are the shrimp moving out of the marsh, but the cold fronts has switched the winds over to the north, so it's making water pour out of that marsh. So, the seagulls diving on these shrimp. These shrimp are popping out of the water to get away from the specks, and then the seagulls are picking them up in midair from popping. It is quite a scene to experience. So I'm going to focus in on that and be doing that article with Danny Hunter of New Orleans Best Charter. So he's a kind of a guru speckled trout fisherman down here, especially with fishing them in the shrimp, fishing them under the birds. So looking forward to that article too.
Man, you brought up a good point. It's shout outs for people who help you with articles. I'd like to, for the article I did, man, I have a lot of, first shout out is to you, Keith, for providing me with some great photographs, for showing me boy, I don't even know how to describe that. Showing me better camera angles to use, for showing me how to focus in on something close and make the background kind of blurred to create great effect, great mood. Also, Keith Bergeron from Grand Isle. I got a quote from him. I got a quote from Owen Belknap from down the Bayou Charters in Port Fourchon. I got a quote from Greg Campbell of Mojo Tackle Company.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I got something exciting. A gentleman has just made a new bait I think he's in Kentucky or Tennessee. He sent me some injectable baits, and they're primarily used for bass or sockeye. But he wants me to try them out on speckled trout. And it's called the Fathead Minnow, and he's doing really good with it. So I have a little challenge there in the marsh and see if I can catch some speckled trout with them. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. A lot of the stuff that we use for bass and the bigger stuff we use for sockeye, like this thing right here, I've caught a lot of. This is from Duo Realis. I've caught a lot of speckled trout on this drop shotting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looks like a good drop shot lure.
This is Duo Realis makes some good stuff, but
yeah,
look at the way that moves. If you have that down there just doing that, I mean, in that color,
yeah,
that's a natural color of a shrimp.
Color, yeah.
But that's about all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Come and talk to our viewers here on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We had a lot of good comments. We had a lot of people coming in and out tonight. Thank you guys so much. And with that, I'm going to end the podcast. Keith, please stick around. I'd like to talk to you for a couple minutes afterwards.
Thanks, Jay, so much.
Thank you.